Jin stood at the window of the Korean Space Agency headquarters, watching the rain fall over New Seoul. The city lights glowed through the mist, a sight that usually calmed him. Not today. Today, everything would change. "They're entering orbit," Tae said, walking up beside him. Tae's military background showed in his straight posture, even though he now worked as a diplomatic advisor. Jin nodded. "Have you seen the images of them?" "Only the basic briefing files," Tae replied. "The Lurith, apex predators, right?" "The apex of apex predators," Jin corrected. "Their evolutionary path made Earth's big cats look like house pets." Director Ryu entered the room, his face tight with worry. "The transport will land in 30 minutes. Jin, you're our best xenobiologist. I need to know what we're dealing with." Jin looked down at his tablet, studying the alien faces one more time. The Lurith had scaled skin that shimmered with subtle iridescence, powerful jaws, and eyes, forward-facing predator eyes, with vertical pupils that reminded him of tigers. "Why us?" Tae asked suddenly. "Why did they choose Earth for first? Contact?" Jin had been wondering the same thing. The Galactic Confederation had dozens of member species, but the Lurith had insisted on meeting humans first. The landing pad was surrounded by military forces, their weapons not quite pointed at the alien ship, but ready to move at a moment's notice. Jin stood with the small welcome committee, trying to control his racing heart. The ship was massive and sleek, shaped like a crouching predator. When the door opened, Jin held his breath. The first alien to emerge was not a Lurith. It was smaller, with a delicate frame and wide-set eyes, classic prey features. The translator in Jin's ear identified it as a Thelid diplomat. "Greetings. From the Galactic Confederation," the Thelid said, its voice translated to a high musical tone. "We come in peace and friendship." 4 more aliens followed, representing different species. Jin recognized them from the briefing files, herbivores and omnivores mostly, with nervous movements and cautious eyes. Then came the Lurith. The massive creature ducked to exit the ship. Standing at its full height, it towered over even the tallest, humans by at least 2 feet. Its body was covered in scales that shifted between deep blue and purple. Powerful muscles moved beneath its skin. But what struck Jin most were its eyes, amber with black slits, intensely focused and intelligent. "I am Dal, prime hunter of the Lurith Dominion," the creature said, its translator conveying a deep, rumbling voice. "We have waited many cycles to meet your kind." Jin stepped forward as planned. "I am Jin, xenobiologist and diplomat of Earth. We welcome you and the Galactic Confederation to our world." Something strange happened then. Dal moved closer to Jin, lowering his massive head to stare directly into Jin's eyes. The other alien delegates shifted uncomfortably, moving back. "Yes," Dal said softly. "It is as we thought." Jin forced himself not to step back. Every instinct told him he was being sized up by a predator, but he held Dal's gaze. "What is it you see, Prime Hunter?" Dal's mouth opened slightly, revealing rows of sharp teeth in what Jin hoped was a smile, not a threat. "Display. Something familiar, Jin of Earth. Something very familiar." The welcome ceremony moved to the main conference room of the Korean Space Agency. Jin observed how the seating arrangements quickly sorted themselves out. The Lurith delegates on one side, the other alien species clustered together on the opposite side. The humans were caught in the middle, unsure where they belonged. Jin sat across from Dal, while Director Ryu handled the formal discussions. Tae leaned over to whisper to Jin. "Notice how none of the other aliens will make eye contact with the Lurith? But they seem just as nervous around us." Jin had noticed. The prey species representatives kept glancing at the humans with what appeared to be concern or fear. When the formal introductions were complete, Jin accessed his data tablet. Information about the Galactic Confederation was being shared. Star. Charts. Member species. Basic history. Jin scrolled through the species list with growing curiosity. Something is wrong, he said to Tay. Look at this classification system. The species were organized into categories. Primary consumers, plant eaters, secondary consumers, omnivores and smaller predators, and apex consumers, top predators. The Lurith were listed as the dominant apex consumer species. Humans were placed in a small subcategory under secondary consumers, alongside omnivores. They've misclassified us, Jin said. Ecologically speaking, humans are apex predators on Earth. Tay frowned. Maybe not in the same way as the Lurith. We don't exactly have claws and fangs. We don't need them. We're persistence predators. We used stamina and intelligence instead of physical weapons. Their conversation was interrupted when Dahl suddenly stood, towering over the table. We request a private audience with the humans only, he announced. The other alien representatives looked shocked. The Thelid diplomat spoke up. Prime Hunter, protocol requires that all initial meetings include the full delegation. Dahl's scales darkened slightly. This matter is between predator species. A confused murmur ran through the room. Director Ryu looked at Jin with raised eyebrows. We will grant your request, Ryu said after a moment. Jin and Tai will represent us. When the other aliens had left, Dahl seemed to relax. 2 other Lurith remained with him, silent and watchful. Now we can speak freely, Dahl said. Your kind has been of interest to us for many cycles. Jin leaned forward. May I ask why? And why did you classify humans as secondary consumers? Dahl made a rumbling sound that the translator didn't catch. Perhaps laughter. We did not classify you. The Confederation did, based on your physical characteristics. No claws, no fangs, limited strength. They see you as barely more than the plant eaters. But you see something different, Jin guessed. We see with predator eyes, Dahl said. And what we see in your eyes is familiar. The focus, the patience, the capacity to track and hunt. You are predators who have hidden your nature. Tay shifted uncomfortably. Humans have moved beyond hunting. We're a peaceful species now. Dahl's vertical pupils narrowed. Are you? Your history says otherwise. You hunted most of your planet's megafauna to extinction. You waged wars of territory and resources. Even now, you organize in hierarchical packs and mark your territories. Jin couldn't argue with this assessment. If you recognize us as predators, why come to us? Surely there are other predator species in the Confederation. Few, Dahl said, and none like you. None that combine the hunter spirit with such complexity. You are not what the others think you are. And what are we? Jin asked. Dahl leaned closer, his massive head just a few feet from Jin's face, his amber eyes locked with Jin's brown ones. You are what we once were before we found the stars. Hungry, curious, dangerous. Dahl paused. The others do not see it yet. They have classified you wrongly, based on your soft appearance. But we know better. Know what? Tay demanded. That humans are apex predators who chose to hide their fangs, Dahl said. And now that you have reached the stars, the galaxy will soon learn what we already see in your eyes. Jin swallowed hard. And what is that? Dahl's mouth opened in that tooth-filled almost smile again. Hunger. Jin of Earth. The patient, calculating hunger of a true hunter. The Confederation has not welcomed a new predator species in 300 cycles. They will not be prepared for what comes next. 3 months after first contact, Jin stepped onto the soil of another world. The air on Koresh, the Lurith homeworld, was thicker than Earth's and carried strange, musky scents. The sky above had a slight purple tint that made the bright sun look alien. Try not to look so nervous, Tay whispered, as they followed their Lurith guide across the landing field. "Remember what Ambassador Hyun said. Show strength." Jin nodded. After the initial meeting on Earth, things had moved quickly. The Galactic Confederation had formally invited humanity to join their ranks, the first new species in decades. But the invitation had come with unusual interest from the Lurith, who insisted on hosting a human delegation on their homeworld. Ambassador Hyun walked ahead of them, her posture perfect as she matched the stride of Dal. Behind Jin and Tae came Suk, the xenoanthropologist who specialized in predator species behavior. "This doesn't match any of the standard diplomatic protocols," Suk had told them during the journey. "The Lurith are breaking tradition by hosting us before we've even been formally accepted into the Confederation." Now, as they approached the massive stone buildings of the Lurith capital, Jin understood why. This wasn't about diplomacy, it was about recognition. "The hunt begins at dawn," Dal explained as they sat in a great hall filled with Lurith. The walls were decorated with what looked like trophies, not mounted heads as humans might display, but tokens, claws, scales, and strange artifacts. "You will join us, Jin." Ambassador Hyun stepped in smoothly. "That's very generous, Prime Hunter, but our diplomatic team should stay together." "This is not a diplomatic event," Dal said, his voice firm. "It is a ritual of recognition. Jin will come. The others may observe from the viewing platforms." Jin met Dal's amber eyes. "I'll go." Later, in their quarters, Ambassador Hyun was not happy. "This isn't what we planned. These hunt rituals, we don't know what they involve." "I've been studying their culture," Suk said. "The hunt is central to Lurith society. Being invited to participate is a great honor." "Or a test," Tae added. Jin looked out the window at the twin moons rising over Koresh. "Either way, I need to go." As the first light broke over the horizon, Jin stood with a group of Lurith at the edge of a vast plain. The landscape reminded him of the African savanna, with scattered trees and tall grass that swayed in the morning breeze. Dal approached, wearing what appeared to be ceremonial armor, lightweight scales that covered his shoulders and back. He handed Jin a small device. "A translator you can wear during the hunt," he explained. "And this." He gave Jin a long knife in a sheath. "You have no natural weapons. This will help." Jin took the blade, aware of eyes watching him, not just Lurith eyes, but others. In the distance on viewing platforms, he could see Tae and the human delegation. Next to them stood representatives from other Confederation species, including a group of Thelid led by a female named Mira. "What are we hunting?" Jin asked. Dal made that rumbling sound that might be laughter. "Persistence, endurance, understanding," he pointed across the plain. "The Caxi herd moves through the valley below. We will take one. Not the young or old, but a strong adult. This honors the herd." Jin nodded. This made sense to him. Sustainable hunting was an old human tradition. 2. "There is another hunting party," Dal said, his voice lower, "led by Vex. He does not believe humans belong in the hunt." As if summoned by his name, a larger Lurith with darker scales approached. Vex towered over Jin, his eyes narrowed. "This one has no place here," Vex said to Dal. "Look at it. No claws, no speed, no strength. The hunt is for predators." Jin kept his face calm, though his heart raced. He remembered what Suk had told him about Lurith culture. Showing fear was the worst possible response. "I may surprise you," Jin said, meeting Vex's gaze directly. Vex seemed startled by Jin's boldness. He leaned down until his face was inches from Jin's. "We shall see, soft one." The hunt began with no warning. The Lurith suddenly moved, spreading out across the plain in a coordinated pattern Jin recognized immediately from Earth predators. They were forming a hunting party to drive and isolate their prey. Jin kept pace as best he could. The Lurith were faster, but Jin had trained for this, running long distances daily since learning of the invitation. He settled into a steady rhythm, preserving his energy. The Caxi herd, massive six-legged creatures that reminded Jin of bison, thundered across the plain. The Lurith hunters guided them expertly, signaling to each other. Hours passed. The sun climbed high. Jin kept running, his breathing controlled, while the Lurith alternated between bursts of speed and slower stalking. He noticed something interesting. The Lurith were tiring. Their hunting style used quick ambush attacks, not sustained pursuit. Finally, the Lurith hunting party cornered a single Caxi, separating it from the herd. The beast was massive, with sharp horns and powerful legs. It turned to face its hunters, ready to fight. Jin watched as the Lurith surrounded it, moving in and out with quick attacks, trying to wear it down. But the Caxi was strong and smart, keeping its back to a large rock formation. Vex became impatient. He charged directly at the Caxi, only to be caught by a powerful kick that sent him sprawling. Two other Lurith rushed in, but had to retreat as the horns swept toward them. Jin studied the situation. He saw what the Lurith hunters couldn't: a pattern to the Caxi's movements, a weakness in its defense. This was what humans had evolved to observe, predict, outlast. He approached Dal, who was watching the standoff. "I have an idea," Jin said. Dal looked at him with surprise. "Speak. Your hunters are trying to overwhelm it with speed and strength. But there's another way. On Earth, before we had weapons, we hunted by exhaustion. We followed prey until it couldn't run anymore. The Caxi has more endurance than we do," Dal said. "Not if we hunt it right. Look at its breathing. It's overheating, but it has no safe path to water. I can drive it toward your hunters." Dal considered Jin's words, then nodded. "Show us." Jin moved to the side of the standoff. He began to approach the Caxi steadily, not rushing, just a constant pressure. The beast watched him, confused by this new threat that didn't move like the others. Jin kept his distance, but whenever the Caxi turned away from him, he closed in. Step by step, he forced the animal to move the direction he wanted. He was using the human hunting technique that had allowed his ancestors to take down prey much faster and stronger than themselves: persistence and intelligence. The Caxi, frustrated and increasingly exhausted, finally made a break in the direction. Jin had been guiding it. The waiting Lurith hunters, following Dal's signals, were ready. The hunt ended quickly after that. Later, as the hunting party returned to the capital, Jin noticed a change in how the Lurith looked at him. There was a new respect in their eyes. Vex approached, his posture less aggressive than before. "You hunt differently than we do," he said, "but effectively." Jin nodded. "Different evolutionary paths, same result." Dal walked beside Jin as they entered the city. "Now, do you understand why we recognized you when others did not?" Jin thought about the hunt, about how he had seen patterns that even the Lurith missed. "Our eyes," he said. "We both evolved to see the world as hunters, to track, to predict, to plan." "Yes," Dal said, "but there is more. Something we will speak of tonight, at the recognition feast." He looked toward the diplomatic viewing platforms, where Mira and the other Thelid were watching with new concern in their wide-set eyes. "I think," Dal added quietly, "the others are beginning to see it too." The recognition feast was held in the largest hall Jin had seen yet on Koresh. Hundreds of Lurith sat at long tables, their scales gleaming in the light of hanging fire pots. At the head table, Jin sat between Dal and Ambassador Hyun, with Tai, and Suk nearby. What surprised Jin most was the presence of other species. Representatives from across the Galactic Confederation had been invited to witness the ceremony. Most notable was a delegation of Thelid led by Mira, who watched the humans with wide, nervous eyes. This is unusual, Sook whispered to Jin. According to my research, the recognition feast is normally only for Lurith. Before Jin could respond, Dal stood and raised a large drinking vessel. The room fell silent. Today, we welcomed a new hunter to the ancient grounds, Dal announced, his voice carrying across the hall. Jin of Earth hunted as no Lurith hunts, with patience, with strategy, with the endurance that wore down the prey that strength alone could not defeat. Murmurs spread through the hall. Jin noticed that Vex, seated at a nearby table, did not look angry anymore. Instead, he seemed thoughtful. The humans are something new to our galaxy, Dal continued. They appear soft, but inside them burns the fire of true predators. Their eyes see as ours see. Mira stood suddenly, her slender form almost fragile compared to the massive Lurith around her. Prime Hunter, if I may speak? Dal nodded, surprising Jin. He had not expected the prey species to have a voice here. The Thelid and our allies are concerned, Mira said. Her voice was gentle but firm. If what you say is true, then humans are not what they appear. They hide their predatory nature. This makes them more dangerous, not less. Ambassador Hyun started to protest, but Jin touched her arm to stop her. This was important. The way the galaxy saw humanity would shape everything that followed. We evolved from prey, Jin said, standing to address the hall. Our distant ancestors were hunted, but we learned to hunt back, not with fangs or claws, but with our minds, with tools, with cooperation. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of both predator and prey species. We don't hide what we are. We transformed what we are. We can be protectors as well as hunters. 2 days after the feast, Jin found himself in the Galactic Confederation Embassy complex on Koresh. A crisis was brewing. News of the hunt had spread throughout the embassy, along with Dal's declaration about human nature. Now several prey species were formally objecting to Earth's invitation to join the Confederation. They're afraid of us, Jun said. He was a military strategist sent by Earth's government to develop security protocols. After what happened at the hunt, they see us as another predator species. Not just another predator species, Yoon corrected. She was a translator who specialized in understanding the psychology of different species. They think we're worse because we don't look dangerous, deceptive predators. Ambassador Hyun paced the room. We need to change their perception. Show them we're not a threat. But we are a threat, Tae said quietly. That's the point. Throughout Earth's history, we've been the most dangerous predator on our planet. Jin thought about this. Maybe instead of denying it, we need to show them how that makes us valuable. A Lurith officer named Keel had joined their meeting. He had been assigned as liaison between the Lurith military and the human delegation. Jin is right, Keel said. The Confederation needs protectors as well as diplomats. The opportunity came, sooner than expected. A border station in a disputed sector sent out a distress call. The small research post was staffed by scientists from various species, including 3 humans. A faction of pirates, outcasts from several worlds, had attacked the station. The Lurith dispatched a defense force immediately, with Keel in command. To everyone's surprise, he requested that Jin, Tae, and Jun join the mission. Your hunting strategies may be useful, Keel explained as their ship raced toward the station. The pirates have taken hostages. We would normally attack directly, but with civilians at risk. Jun studied the station schematics. Direct assault would endanger the hostages. We need precision, not just strength. For hours they planned. Jin watched with interest as Jun proposed tactics that the Lurith had never considered, approaches based on human military history. Your species fights differently than ours, Keel observed. We evolved to overpower enemies with strength and speed. You evolved to outsmart them. When they reached the station, they found a standoff. The pirates had barricaded themselves in the main lab with 12 hostages, a mix of species including one human researcher. While the Lurith prepared for a possible direct assault, Jun implemented his strategy. Using the station's maintenance systems, they manipulated air pressure, lighting, and sound to create confusion among the pirates. Then, small teams, each mixing Lurith strength with human strategy, entered through multiple points. The rescue succeeded with minimal casualties. As they freed the hostages, Jin noticed something fascinating. The prey species scientists were equally relieved to see both humans and Lurith rescuers. In that moment of crisis, the distinction between predator types seemed to fade. "You fight like hunters but protect like pack guardians," Keel said as they returned to Koresh. "This is unusual." Jin had been thinking about this. On Earth, the most successful predators are often those that protect their group. Wolves, lions, even early humans. We hunted as packs, but we also defended our own fiercely. Word of the rescue spread quickly through diplomatic channels. Jin found himself called to an emergency meeting at the Confederation Embassy. Ambassador Hyun was there, looking both worried and hopeful. "The rescue has changed some minds," she told Jin, "but there's a new development. A coalition of prey species, led by a thelid named Zarn, has formally requested a full review of humanity before we're admitted to the Confederation." Zarn was older than Mira, with gray streaks in his fur. He stood before the gathered diplomats, his wide eyes focused on the human delegation. "We have studied Earth's history," Zarn said. "Your kind has a pattern of expansion, conquest, and dominance that exceeds even the Lurith. You are apex predators with technology, which makes you the most dangerous species yet encountered." Murmurs filled the chamber. Jin saw nods of agreement from many prey species representatives. "Furthermore," Zarn continued, "unlike the Lurith, who are open about their predatory nature, humans conceal theirs behind diplomacy and culture. You speak of peace, while your eyes track movement like hunters." Ambassador Hyun began a diplomatic response, but Jin found himself stepping forward. "You're right," Jin said, causing a shocked silence. "We are predators. We hunted our way to dominance on Earth. But that same evolutionary path taught us something else." He looked around the room slowly. "We learned to see ourselves in others. Prey or predator, it doesn't matter. Humans can understand both because we have been both." He turned to face Zarn directly. "That's what you see in our eyes. Not just the focus of a hunter, but the memory of what it was like to be hunted. That makes us not just dangerous, but valuable." Dahl, who had been silent until now, stepped forward to stand beside Jin. "This is why the Lurith recognized something in humans that others missed. Not just a fellow predator, but a predator that remembers being prey. One that can build bridges the rest of us cannot." As the meeting ended in continued debate, Jin realized they had reached a critical point. The galaxy was beginning to see humans clearly, not as harmless newcomers, nor as simple predators, but as something more complex. Whether that would lead to acceptance or rejection remained to be seen. 5 years had passed since first contact. On a planet chosen for its neutral status, representatives from across the galaxy gathered for what was being called the Convergence. The massive amphitheater had been built specifically for this event, with sections designed to accommodate the needs of dozens of different species. Jin stood at the edge of the human delegation, watching as the various groups found their places. 5 years of diplomatic work, cultural exchange, and carefully managed conflicts had led to this moment. "Nervous?" Tay asked, joining him. "A little," Jin admitted. "There's a lot riding on today." Ambassador Song, who now led Earth's unified diplomatic corps, approached them. Her gray hair was pulled back in a simple style, her face serene despite the pressure. "The Lurith delegation has arrived," she told them. Dal is with them, and someone else, an elder named Garo. They've requested to meet with us before the main ceremony. Jin had heard of Garo, though he'd never met him. The ancient Lurith was rarely seen in public, a respected keeper of their oldest traditions. His presence suggested something important was about to happen. The meeting room was simple, with large windows overlooking the planet's strange orange ocean. Dal entered first, his scales now bearing additional markings of rank. Behind him came Garo, moving slowly with age. His scales faded to a pale blue-gray. "Jin of Earth," Garo said, his voice deep but soft. "I have waited many cycles to meet you." Jin bowed respectfully. "The honor is mine, Elder Garo." Garo studied Jin's face with intense focus. "The eyes," he said finally, nodding. "Yes, it is as our oldest songs describe." He turned to Song. "Your species carries the balance. This has been foretold." Song looked confused. "What balance do you mean?" "Between hunter and protector," Garo said. "Between what takes life and what preserves it." He moved to the window, looking out at the gathering below. "Our histories tell of a time when the galaxy was torn by the eternal conflict between predator and prey. The Lurith were among the worst, conquerors who saw other species as little more than targets." Dal nodded, his expression solemn. "We evolved past this, but the division remains. Predator species and prey species rarely truly understand each other. There is cooperation now, but not deep trust." Garo turned back to the humans. "Our oldest prophecies speak of a species that would one day join the stars, one that carried the eyes of a hunter but the heart of a guardian, one that remembered what it was to be prey, even as it became predator." Jin thought of Earth's long evolutionary history, of early humans, vulnerable to larger predators, gradually becoming the most dangerous hunters on the planet. "We still carry both aspects within us," he said. "This is why we recognized you," Dal said. "Not just as fellow hunters, but as something our kind aspires to be." The main ceremony began with traditional introductions of each major species. Jin sat with the human delegation, watching as representatives took their turns at the central speaking platform. When Zarn of the Thelid spoke, his tone was cautious, but no longer hostile. "5 years ago, we feared what the humans might represent. Their hidden predatory nature concerned us, but we have observed them closely. They are indeed predators, but predators who chose a different path." Next came a small human girl named Min. Born after first contact, she was part of the first generation of humans to grow up knowing they were not alone in the universe. She had been chosen to represent Earth's future. Min walked to the center of the platform, looking tiny among the massive architecture. A Thelid child and a young Lurith waited there to greet her. What happened next caught everyone by surprise. The young Lurith playfully lunged at Min, as their species' children often did. Instead of flinching away, Min stood her ground and made a playful lunge back. Then she gently took both alien children by the hand, connecting them. A murmur ran through the amphitheater. The simple gesture, showing neither fear of the predator nor threat to the prey, captured something essential about humanity's unique position. When Song took the platform, she spoke clearly and with purpose. "Humans are not perfect. Our history includes both great protection and terrible predation. But perhaps that very duality makes us useful to this confederation. We understand both sides because we have been both sides." An ancient mediator named Thren from a nearly extinct lineage rose to speak next. "The convergence was called to determine humanity's place in our galactic community. I believe today we have seen that place, not as simple predators or prey, but as bridge builders between worlds too long divided." Later that day, Jin stood with Dal and Garo in a private chamber where a ritual was being prepared. The Lurith. Recognition ceremony was rarely performed for outsiders, but today would be an exception. "Are you ready?" Dal asked Jin. Jin nodded, though his heart beat quickly. The ritual involved a symbolic hunt and voluntary blood sharing, not dangerous, but deeply meaningful in Lurith culture. As the ritual began, Jin found himself thinking about the long evolutionary journey that had brought humanity to this point. From tree-dwelling primates to savanna hunters, from tribal groups to global civilization, and now to the stars. Garo spoke the ancient words as he marked Jin's forehead with a small drop of Lurith blood. Hunter and hunted, predator and protector. The circle is made complete. When it was done, Jin felt no physical change, but something had shifted in how the Lurith regarded him. He was recognized now, not just as another sentient being, but as kin of a special kind. The final agreement, which would come to be called the Galactic Concordat, established a new role for humanity within the Confederation. Humans would serve as mediators between predator and prey species, helping bridge gaps in understanding that had existed for millennia. "It's what we've always done best," Jin told Tay as they watched the document being formally signed, "taking different perspectives and finding common ground." Zarn approached them, his earlier suspicion replaced with cautious respect. "Your eyes still track movement like hunters," he said to Jin. "But now I understand what else is there." "What do you see?" Jin asked curiously. "Choice," Zarn said simply. "The predator that chooses when not to hunt is something new to our galaxy, something important." As the ceremony concluded, Jin found himself standing between Dal and Mira. Predator on one side, prey on the other. Together, they watched as the first joint mission teams were announced, with humans serving in key connecting roles. What predators across the galaxy recognize in human eyes is not just the look of a fellow hunter, Dal said quietly. It is the reflection of what we all might become, beings who remember their origins but are not bound by them. Jin smiled. As he looked out at the gathered species, no longer divided into simple categories of hunter and hunted, but united in a more complex understanding. Humanity had found its place not by denying its predatory nature, but by transcending it while embracing the vigilance, focus, and protective instincts that came with it. In human eyes, the galaxy had found something precious, the bridge between what was and what could be.